Welcome to the CEO Launch Podcast.
We are a dynamic mother-daughter duo bringing you personality, insights, and practical advice from two different generations of entrepreneurship.
We aren't just mother and daughter. We are also best friends and business partners.
I've watched my mom help thousands of entrepreneurs start the businesses of their dreams, including me. And now it's your turn.
So last week we talked about dating as an entrepreneur, and it was a good one. So if you missed it, make sure you go back and check it out. Today we want to talk about parenting as an entrepreneur.
And I'd like to share what it's like to have a mother who is an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so let me just say that parenting has been one of the hardest jobs I've ever had.
I'm not sure if I should take offense to this or feel proud.
Yeah, well, no, it's nothing to be offended about. It's just been a hard job, but it's been also the most rewarding job. So there you go.
Okay, I feel better.
Okay. So when I started my first business, Kenya was 3 years old. We talked about that in the previous episode. And when I started my accounting firm, which is still in business today, she was 6. 10 months after I started that business, so 10 months after, her dad and I separated. And that was kind of hard because we didn't really go into the marriage thinking that one day we separate. Everybody kind of thinks that marriage is forever.
Right.
That was a hard thing to do, to one, make that decision, and two, to actually follow through with it.
Right.
But one of the things that was really important to me as a parent, because I knew that she was always watching me, is I wanted to set a good example for her. And one of the examples that I wanted to make sure that I set for her was what a healthy relationship looked like. And the relationship her dad and I had at the time wasn't it. And so staying would have probably been easier. We wouldn't have had to deal with figuring out joint custody and all of this other stuff. But at the end of the day, I wanted you, Kenya, to see what a healthy relationship looked like. And I also wanted to make sure that you, when you got to that point in your life, that you were in healthy relationships.
And I definitely think those are lessons that I've definitely grabbed throughout life. Of course, it's taking time. You don't learn how to have a healthy relationship at 4.
Or 6. Or 16.
Or 26, It takes time and it takes experience. But I have always kind of walked into things with the mindset of recognizing when things feel good and when they don't. Not just from, like an intimate relationship standpoint, but all relationships, whether it's friendships, work relationships, things like that, just being very cognizant of whether or not that particular relationship is serving me in the way that I need to be served.
Yeah, and so, again, back to being the most rewarding job, I think that I did that. I was able to show you that these are the things that make for a healthy relationship. And when you don't have these things, you communicate that you need these things. And when the person is still unwilling or unable to give you those things, it's time
to go.
Yeah, it's time to go. It's time to go. And so that was one of the things, being an entrepreneur as a parent, you have to be mindful of the things that your kids see you do. They're watching you. They're paying attention to it. And as hard as it was for us to make that transition, we left Florida, moved to Atlanta, which for me, like you said, it was a rebirth. It was one of the best things that ever happened to my business and my life. And so I was basically starting from scratch, and you got that front row seat.
Yeah. And especially looking at it we almost moved here like 20 years ago, which is kind of crazy. But looking at it almost 20 years later, just thinking about how things like remembering you being on the kitchen table with all of your files and all of those things, and me sorting receipts, and now seeing kind of where we are. This partnership has been building over time, but definitely the power dynamics have changed and shifted
Now we're sharing power. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, a little, I think. I think we might be on the same level in some ways, at least in this space.
In this space.
In this space. I'll accept that. But yeah, just kind of seeing that growth, it's always been super inspiring. And I have never really been afraid to do things because I have no fear of starting over. You know, I've seen what starting over can look like time and time again, and the restart and the rebirth is not as scary as the decline could be.
Yeah, oh man, that's excellent. That's an excellent point, because that was one of the other things that I wanted to make sure that I showed you, that anything that you wanted to do, you could do it. Like, I think all parents probably tell their kids that you can do anything that you want to do. You could do anything you set your mind to. You could be anybody that you wanted to be. And I wanted to be that parent, but I wanted to not only tell you those things, but I wanted to show you those things. Like, I wanted you to know without a doubt that you could be whatever you wanted to be, and you could do whatever you wanted to do because you saw me do it. You know, it wasn't like my life was so rosy and I'm just going to tell you, oh yeah, well, it's going to be easy for you too, kind of thing.
Right. And that definitely has showed out in a lot of different ways. I mean, we have stories on stories, but I think one of the most prominent lessons that I got from you being an entrepreneur was that, especially as a woman, I had the ability to create the world that I wanted to see. You know, if I didn't fit into some space, or if some space didn't fit me, that I always had an opportunity to create a space for myself. You know, a lot of times we talk about having a seat at the table, and I think having a parent as an entrepreneur showed me that I can build the table myself. I don't have to come to other people's tables. And that confidence and even that reassurance in my own abilities, that translates in a lot of different things that goes beyond entrepreneurship, but still flourishes within that entrepreneurship. And my favorite phrase that you say, even with these feelings, there are still times where I experience self-doubt, I experience fear, I'm human. But I do still feel like, as you would say, that I have all the tools I need to succeed. And I feel like that, like everything that I possess is going to help me be successful. And I just have to tune into that and, you know, go into my toolkit and make it happen. So I definitely think those are one of the most powerful lessons that I learned. Seeing you just grow and thrive and really do it and never give up, you know, never give up, never back down, never stop dreaming. Because why should you?
Right. You're absolutely right. You know, I was kind of listening to you and I almost was mesmerized for a moment, because it's like, wow, you know, to hear these words coming from you, like, try not to get full at this particular moment, but it was so important for me, for you to believe that, because I always wanted you to have something that I didn't have. My mom gave me something that she didn't have. And I wanted to give you something that you didn't have, because the goal is always for the next generation to be better.
Right.
And I'm so grateful that the experience that you've had as the child of an entrepreneur has caused you to not be afraid. Like, you know, to really not be afraid to do whatever it is that you're trying to do, because the last thing that I wanted for you as a parent was to show you that you can take the first step without knowing what the second step is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes you take that first step and you have to figure out the second step. But when you have that confidence in yourself and the confidence in what you're doing, you're able to do that.
Right. I fully agree. I think the underlying thing of having a parent as an entrepreneur is that everything is a lesson. You know, everything is a learning opportunity. Like, everything is a teachable moment, whether it's the ones where, you know, we not on one accord and you need to teach me a lesson about something that I'm being stubborn about, or, you know, the bigger picture on just having these skills that transfer so seamlessly into thriving in life. I will say, you know, as you are an entrepreneurial parent, you kind of maybe uninhibitedly prepare your children to also be entrepreneurs. with those teachable moments that you impart on them piece by piece.
And we definitely had a lot of those. We may need to do an episode about some of
just the teachable moments.
Yeah, just some of the teachable moments that we had growing up together. Like, we really did. We kind of grew up together in this. And so when I think about, I want to kind of wrap up my points, and then you can share any points that you may have or takeaways that you have. But one of the things that, like I said in the beginning, I wanted to make sure that you understood what healthy relationships look like, what they felt like. And I feel like that it was accomplished. I also wanted to make sure as a mom that you knew that you could be whatever you wanted to be, and not just because I said so, but because I modeled it for you. And then the last thing that I wanted you to know is not to be afraid to start over. If you needed to start over, because you can start over without knowing, what the next step. And I'm not saying that doesn't mean, so listeners, I'm not telling you to take risks. You take calculated risks, you plan and all those kind of things. But sometimes starting over means that all you know is the first step. You're going to figure out that next step. So what else do you have?
As the child of an entrepreneur, knowing that there was nothing I could not do. Literally, the sky was my own limit. Like, my limitations only existed because of myself. That was always just a powerful experience. And being able to grow into that idea, that's my biggest takeaway. It's no limit. It's to your creation, to your ideation, to your production. Like, there are so many different things that you can do, and you just have to set your mind to it. Because my second favorite phrase that you say all the time is make a plan. Think about what you want to do, and then just make a plan, and then make it happen. So.
Yeah. And that's definitely one of our things. Anytime Kenya has ever come to me with an idea, I would always say, what's the plan? What's the plan? And so she knows that if she comes to me with a plan and it's sound, I'm not supporting just anything, but if she comes to me with a plan and it is sound, that I'm going to be behind her 100%. Kind of like your prom budget. Remember that?
Yep. You always have me in Excel for whatever reason. I had to make a budget for prom. She was going to pay for everything, but I had to budget it out. And so I did. I made a budget for prom, and I was under budget, thankfully, because prom was not the experience that anybody made it seem like. I'm very happy I didn't spend a lot of money on that. Like, it was kind of a waste of time. But I made a prom budget, and I was under. So I think that's a business lesson. Ooh, maybe we should talk about that.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, we'll add that to the episode list. So as we're closing out, one of the things that I want to encourage you all as entrepreneurs, whether you are aspiring, whether you're new or seasoned, that sometimes in entrepreneurship, you got to do it scared. Even though you don't know if you're going to be successful, you don't know how it's going to turn out. You have to do it scared. And the last thing is, you just never know who's watching you.
You never know, so you got to give them a show.
That's what's up. That is what's up. So listen, next week we are talking about...
Before you quit your day job.
Yes. And so make sure you tune in to the next episode where we talk about the things that you need to know before you quit your day job. So if you haven't already joined our online community, make sure that you do so, the Efficient CEO Movement on Facebook. And that is where we will continue the conversation and provide you with tips, advice, and encouragement along the way.
And follow us on all social media at The CEO Launch. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We got a YouTube page, TikTok coming in about 2 months. Look out for us. Yeah.
Yep. And MySpace, right?
Oh, well, Tom said we couldn't do it. No business pages on MySpace.
Joke. So yes, guys, thanks for being here with us this week, and we will see you next week.
And don't forget to take off.
This is a Clearwood production.